with the news breaking late in our show yesterday with the Jim Harbaugh case, which is filled with twists and turns. And one of the guys who's been at the forefront of it is Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports. And I've been reading your stuff, Dan. And first of all, thanks for joining us. And I've been reading your stuff and listening to your podcast. And I get the sense that we're going into some uncharted territory with this case, is what it feels like on both Michigan's front and the NCAA's front.
Yeah, it's certainly been an eventful case, considering how small of scope it is. There's only like 4 alleged violations, and this isn't one of these big winding, huge cases that they spent 2 years working on. It all just came together, but you get whiplash following it, right? He's not going to be suspended, then he's going to be suspended for 4 games, and he's not going to be suspended at all. Now he's going to get 3 games. I think we're done for a while, probably until the end of the year, when it all comes back and everyone wonders whether Harbaugh stays or goes to the NFL or fights or what happens next. So it's been a wild one.
What is the thing that's caught your attention most, that you're like, well, that's different, or that's not what I expected?
Well, the NCAA process where, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh agree to a plea deal, if you will, if we're going to use criminal terms or criminal court, with the NCAA as kind of the prosecutors, or the part of the NCAA is the prosecutors, the enforcement staff, and you say, look, we admit this, give us 4 games, we're all going to move on. And then you go to this panel, another panel inside the NCAA, and they reject it. So, if you rob a bank and the prosecutor says, hey, we can nail you for 10 years, you plead guilty, we don't do a trial, how about 6? And you say, okay, let's do it. There's a high probability that the judge is going to be like, fine, go ahead. The fact that they said no, which is basically we want more games out of Harbaugh. They're not saying no because Jim Harbaugh pled to too many games. It's part of the process, but it's rare. And it's especially rare for something like this, a third of a season for a coach of his stature, which probably shouldn't matter, but usually does. A team that's number 2 in the country, which probably shouldn't matter, but generally does, is pretty amazing. So that was it. When the NCAA, part of the NCAA rejected the other part, it's like they were at war with themselves. And then Michigan and Harbaugh are sitting there going, man, we tried to resolve this. You guys won't do it. Now Michigan's just basically saying, look, let's take 3 and deal with you guys at the end of the season.
Typically when a school self-imposes, I find that is their way of saying, hey, we acknowledge it. We are going to independently do something. Will you please accept this? And you're trying to lessen the punishment. But considering that they rejected more than that, it strikes me that that's not the case here. I feel like what they're likely doing is accepting the level 2 violations and saying, we're going to suspend him for that, but we're going to fight you on the level 1 accusations.
The level 2 violations would not cause a 3-game suspension. The level 2 violations would be more minor sanctions, more education, stuff like that. So they're punishing hard on that as an institution. And later on, let's say Harbaugh leaves, they might be able to say, hey, look, that was Jim's thing, not ours. Not everybody's wholly aligned on this. So, what you often try to do is assess a penalty that won't be a big factor. And you can certainly argue sitting for East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green is not a big factor. Like one year, I think LSU was like 5-7, and they banned themselves from a bowl bid. They took a postseason ban and said, hey, look, we won't go. They were 5-5, I think, at that point. And they go, we won't go to a bowl this year. That's going to be our punishment. Well, you weren't going to a bowl anyway, or if you were, it was not something that an LSU-type program would want to go to, December 22nd in Shreveport. So they tried to do that so that, hey, next year you don't give us a postseason ban, and we got a team that could make the playoff, right? So you try to give them something, but you don't give them too much. The thing I don't understand, the thing with the NCAA is sometimes cooperating, currying favor, appeasement works, and sometimes it doesn't. And so as an institution for Michigan, they have to worry about how long is Jim Harbaugh suspended, Does this impact Jim Harbaugh's interest in staying in college football, which is really the biggest thing here? The long play is, can we keep this guy because he's a great coach? But they also have to look at what other sanctions will go down because of these violations. Now, you could sit there and say, hey, they have all sorts of things. You'll get less recruits you can bring in on official visits, or there's less days on the road. Your coaches can be out scouting, or different kind of structural penalties that come in. In my opinion, the way recruiting is now, particularly at a place like Michigan, I don't think those penalties matter at all. As long as you're not banning someone from a postseason, which I don't believe they would at all. I don't think they'll do that anymore. I don't think that stuff matters. Michigan recruits heavy out of the transfer portal, where they're getting kids that have already played 3 years. When you're 22 years old, you don't care about your campus visit. You no longer care whether you got a cool photo shoot on a recruiting visit, or what the colors are, or whatever. Or how close you are to mom and dad. You're like, can you get me to the NFL, or can I win? And Michigan can do both of those. And then it's NIL money. How much money you got? Can you beat somebody else? So I actually think the way the NCAA punishes programs, which is probably what Michigan is trying to mitigate against, I think those things are obsolete because the way recruiting has changed. I'm not sure those are real penalties anymore.
The NCAA actually released a public statement too, and I know you wrote about this, which was highly unusual. What for people who didn't read your column, which some might not have? Give your opinion on that?
Yeah, generally no one's supposed to talk, which is why you read these stories and everybody issues the same statement. It's an ongoing situation. We can't comment. So the NCAA they're allowed to clarify a few things, but they came right out, and obviously there was the not a cheeseburger line. They said, look, this is what this case is about. I can't remember the exact two things, but off-campus recruiting during a dead period and how many coaches you have on practice and stuff like that. And those are real rules and real violations. And I know people hate the NCAA, but those two rules exist in the NFL too. Like if you can't talk to a free agent until March 1st, and all of a sudden you find out Bill Belichick's having dinner with a lunch and just bought a hamburger for the top free agent a week before, he's going to get punished by the NFL. If you find out that the Patriots, and I know I'm just using the Patriots randomly, I don't know why I'm violations, but the Patriots have 40 coaches and you're only allowed 25, or they're working guys out twice a day and the union rules say you can only do, they're going to get punished. This isn't about amateurism. What Harbaugh was violating are real rules, and someone's got to have a calendar for how a sport works, right? So he was doing all that. So they point that out, but then they mentioned that it's not just a cheeseburger, and that's really that's a fan argument. That angle got kind of obviously leaked probably from somebody at Michigan that, hey, this is what happened. All he did was, there was this, they bought a hamburger for a recruit, down the brown jug, and, it's nothing and all that. But Jim Harbaugh has never come out and said, hey, it's just a hamburger, I shouldn't be punished. Ward Manuel's never come out and said that. No lawyer involved with Michigan, no compliance office, nobody has said that. The message boards have said it. I'm sure you've had it on your air, have said it. Lots of people, fans have said it. And so for the NCAA, which is normally very buttoned down, to start clapping back and arguing with fans is totally absurd. I mean, who cares what the fans think? Of course the fans think their school didn't do anything. I don't care what school it is. They think they didn't do anything. That's why they're fans. So that was completely unprofessional in the NCAA. Again, this is a really wild case for something that it's not even 9. I think the case began in like November. Like, I think they first confronted Harbaugh like November or December or something. I don't know. It was like late in the year. And I mean, this is a really quick case for this much drama to go down.
Dan, final thing. How do you think this plays itself out? Or is there any telling?
There's no telling, and obviously the risk is either does the NCAA back down now after this? Do they really want to take this to a full committee on infractions case and draw out this process to try to squeeze 1 to 2 to 3 more games out of Jim Harbaugh? Or is it like, all right, good enough at this point? Do they now settle down and just say, forget it? Because this is, I mean, what punishment are you going to give? Obviously, next season, if Harbaugh is still there, which I think he still wants to be, but if he's still there, the second game of the year is Texas. Texas visits Michigan. That's the one that matters. So are you going to go through this whole process just so you can make him miss the Texas game, or not? Do you back down from this recommendation of we shouldn't accept the 4-game penalty? I still don't know why they just didn't accept the 4-game penalty. This case didn't need to be prolonged. Why are you fighting? And I get it. It's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be kind of an equal justice thing, but Jim Harbaugh is one of the 3 or 4 most famous college football coaches. This is a big program. These punishments, we're having an entire battle over whether he should coach the Rutgers game or not. Like, it's just a lot for what's very little in terms of real violations. This isn't academic fraud. This isn't performance-enhancing drugs. This isn't hazing. This isn't at the time when you couldn't drop a Lamborghini off at the kid's house, you dropped Lamborghinis off at the kid's house. It's just, I don't really know why this is such a big drama. But I will say Jim Harbaugh does find his way into big soap operas. He's great at it. And he tends to coach really well in chaos. If he doesn't have chaos, he finds a way to create it. So here it is.
Dan, appreciate your time. We've been following along and love the College Football Inquirer podcast. You guys do a great job. Yep. Take care. We'll see you around.
See you soon.
Danny Wetzel.